Hello there, and welcome to the Drift to the Stars. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. There is a feeling almost everyone has carried often in silence. It arrives quietly before we choose it, and tonight we will sit with it, gently turning it over, the way you might turn a stone you found on a shore, curious rather than afraid. And just before we begin, if these calm, curious explorations help you unwind, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Now if you're ready, let's begin. Jealousy rarely announces itself with words. It comes first as a small tightening, a question the body asks before the mind has language for it. Researchers who study emotion describe jealousy as a response that begins in the older, faster parts of the brain, the regions that react before conscious thought catches up. So the feeling is already moving inside us before we know what to call it. And there is something strangely tender in that. The heart, it seems, was watching over what it loved long before it ever learned to explain itself. Picture a small face, only weeks into the world, following the warmth of a familiar voice. When that warmth turns towards someone else, the little body stiffens, the face crumples, a quiet protest rises. It happens before memory, before language, before the child could ever name what they want. Developmental researchers have observed that infants as young as 5 months show signs of distress when their mother's direct affection toward what appears to be another baby, even a lifelike doll. The infants fuss and reach and try to draw the gaze back to themselves. This is not something taught. It arrives already assembled, woven in before the world could shape it. And so we learn that the feeling we sometimes judge in ourselves is older than judgment. It belongs to the very first weeks of being alive, to the simple, aching wish to remain close to the one who keeps us safe. You carried this once before you could remember carrying anything at all. It was never a flaw in you. It was simply the first shape of love, reaching for the warmth it could not yet survive without. There is a reason heartache feels like an ache. The language is not only poetry. When we are excluded, left out, or quietly replaced, the body responds as though something has truly wounded it. In studies where people were deliberately left out of a simple ball-tossing game, brain scans showed activity in the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula, the very regions that light up during physical pain. The brain, it turns out, did not build a separate system for the hurt of being left behind. It borrowed the one it already had for cuts and burns and broken bones. So when jealousy stings, when exclusion sits heavy in the chest, the body is not exaggerating. It is speaking the only language it knows for loss, the language of pain. And this means your tenderness towards such moments was always reasonable. You were never being dramatic. You are registering a real injury on the same ancient circuitry that has protected living things for millions of years, quietly, faithfully, since long before anyone thought to call it feeling. Notice sometime what jealousy does to the body. The quickened pulse, the heat rising in the face, the strange, restless energy with nowhere to go. It feels like an alarm because, in a sense, it is one. When jealousy takes hold, the body releases cortisol and adrenaline, the same stress hormones that surge when we sense danger. These are the chemicals that once prepared our ancestors to run from a predator or stand their ground. The body cannot easily tell the difference between a threat to the flesh and a threat to a bond. It readies us either way. This is why jealousy can feel so physical, so hard to simply think your way out of. The body has already decided something precious might be slipping away, and it has armed itself accordingly. And yet, there is comfort hidden here too. That same surge means a part of you still deeply values what it fears to lose. The alarm only rings for things that matter. It is, in its own clumsy way, devotion, wearing the costume of fear. Somewhere in the long history of human speech, people who never met, who lived oceans apart, reached for the same color to describe the same feeling. Green. The color of unripe fruit, of sickness, of something not quite whole. The ancient Greeks spoke of envy as a kind of paleness, a greenish tint to the skin. Centuries later and continents away, the association surfaced again and again in unrelated languages and traditions. The link between green and envy appears so widely that scholars still debate exactly why it took root so deeply, though no single explanation has settled the matter. There is something quietly moving in this. Across all our differences, separated by mountains and seas and thousands of years, human beings kept arriving at the same quiet truth about the same quiet ache. The feeling was universal enough that the metaphors converged. And so jealousy, which can make us feel so alone, is in truth one of the most shared experiences our species has. Everyone who ever lived has stood at least once in that same green light. Watch a dog when its person greets another animal. Often it will press in, lean against a leg, nose its way between them, placing its own warm body in the small space where attention might wander. In one careful experiment, dogs were shown their owners giving affection to what looked like another dog. Many pushed between them, pawed for notice, tried gently to interrupt. They showed far less of this when the owner attended to a lifeless object instead. The behavior looked remarkably like the jealousy we know in ourselves, a wish to remain the one who is chosen. This tells us the feeling is not ours alone. It runs deeper than humankind, older than our particular branch of life. The instinct to guard a bond, to keep close to the source of warmth and safety, is something we share with the creatures who sleep at our feet. And there is a strange comfort in that kinship. The thing in us that aches to be chosen is the same thing that has kept warm bodies pressed close together across countless species through every long and ancient night. I'll write the next batch. Note that your outline runs facts 7 through 20 here. There is a hidden thread connecting jealousy to something far warmer than we might expect. Follow the word back through time, and it leads somewhere surprising. Both jealousy and zeal descend from the same ancient Greek root, zelos, which carried the sense of fervor, ardor, eager devotion. In its oldest form, the word did not mean suspicion or bitterness. It meant the heat of caring deeply. Only later did the meaning split, one branch becoming zeal, the bright energy of passion, the other becoming jealousy, the anxious guarding of what we love. So the two are not strangers. They are siblings born from the same root, shaped by the same fire. The thing that makes us cheer for something also makes us fear to lose it. And knowing this softens the feeling somehow. When jealousy stirs in you, it is not a sign that something has gone wrong inside. It is the older twin of enthusiasm, the same devotion turned inward, still warm at its core, still made of caring more than of anything cold. We tend to think of jealousy as belonging to romance alone, to lovers and their fears. But the brain does not draw such tidy borders. The ache of a friendship slipping away travels many of the same roads. Studies of social and romantic jealousy have found overlapping activity in regions tied to attachment and to monitoring our place in a group. Whether we fear losing a partner or fear a close friend drifting toward someone new, the brain engages similar circuitry, the systems that track belonging and sound the alarm when it feels threatened. This is why the loss of a friend can wound as deeply as any romance, though we are given fewer words for it. The body knows what the language overlooks, and there is something gentle in that recognition. Every bond you have ever guarded, every closeness you feared to lose, drew on the same deep wellspring of care. Your heart was never being foolish to ache over a friend. It was simply honoring a truth older than our categories, that all belonging matters and all of it is worth keeping close. Lift your gaze in your mind far past the ceiling and the clouds to the quiet ring of machines circling the earth. Thousands of them drifting in the dark, each one tracing its own patient path. To keep them from colliding, engineers place satellites in carefully separated orbits, assigning each its own altitude and lane, so that two craft rarely cross the same point at the same moment. In the crowded band of space above the equator, every satellite is given its own measured slice of sky, a place that belongs to it alone. There is a kind of peace in that arrangement, a model of belonging without rivalry. Each one has its place, and no one's place diminishes another's. Up there in the cold and the silence, the machines we made circle endlessly, never crowding, never competing, simply held in their separate orbits by the same gentle pull. And perhaps there is something to learn from that quiet geometry, where everything has room and nothing has to push another aside to keep its place among the stars. There is a moment, brief and almost invisible, when admiration and envy are indistinguishable. You see someone with something lovely, a talent, a life, a grace, and a feeling rises. What that feeling becomes depends on what happens next. Psychologists who study envy describe how it often begins with the same upward comparison that produces admiration. We notice that someone has something good. From there, the path can fork. One direction leads to inspiration, a wish to rise toward what we admire. The other leads to the bitter ache of envy, a wish to pull the other down. The spark is shared. Only the response diverges. This means the line between the two is not fixed. It is chosen often without our noticing, in the quiet second after the feeling arrives. And that is a hopeful thing to hold. The same recognition of beauty in another can, with the smallest turn, become a light to walk toward rather than a shadow to resent. You stand at that fork more often than you know, and you have always had the power to choose which way you face. In families, the youngest child often grows up watching how the cake is cut, how the praise is given, how the small economies of attention flow. And this watching sharpens something. Research on siblings suggests that later-born children tend to develop a keen sensitivity to fairness and to social comparison, attuned early to who receives what. Having entered a world where others arrived first, they learn to track the distribution of love and resources with particular care. The instinct is not weakness, it is intelligence shaped by position. So if you were a younger sibling, perhaps you carry this quiet vigilance still, this readiness to notice when shares come out uneven. It was never pettiness. It was a skill the family taught you, a way of staying safe in a world where you had to learn the shape of fairness early. And the same eyes that once watched the cake being cut can become the eyes that notice with great tenderness exactly how much everyone around you needs to feel they have enough. Long before a child can speak of fairness, the eyes already understand it. Show a baby a simple scene, two figures, a reward divided, and watch where the gaze lingers. In studies of infant cognition, babies as young as 15 months looked noticeably longer when resources were shared unequally between two characters than when they were divided evenly. The longer looking is how researchers measure surprise. The unequal share violated something the infant already expected. Fairness, it seems, is not only taught. Some sense of it arrives early, built into how we watch the world. There is wonder in that. Before we can walk or name a single color, we already carry an expectation that things ought to come out even, and a small startle when they do not. The roots of justice run deeper than instruction. And so jealousy, which is often only fairness wearing a heavier coat, was never something the world simply poured into us. It grew from a seed we arrived with. A quiet inborn sense that everyone deserves their share of the warmth. Far below the waves where the light grows thin and blue, some creatures keep a faithfulness that would humble us. They choose one companion, and they keep that bond through the whole of their lives. Certain fish, among them some species of butterfly fish, form lasting pair bonds, swimming together across the reef and defending their shared territory against intruders. Where one goes, the other follows, close behind, and the pair will turn together to face any rival that approaches their patch of water. The bond holds year after year in the silent dark. There is something steadying in knowing this. The wish to keep one companion close, to guard a bond against the wide and crowded world, is not a human invention or a human flaw. It moves through the oceans, written into bodies utterly unlike our own. And so the part of you that longs for constancy, that aches to keep a chosen closeness safe, belongs to something vast and ancient. a thread of faithfulness running all the way down to the quiet creatures of the reef. Here is a small surprise about jealousy, one that points toward its cure. The feeling does not soften when we finally win the thing we feared to lose. It softens when we feel safe. Research on attachment finds that people who feel securely connected in their relationships experience jealousy less intensely and recover from it more quickly. It is not possession that calms the feeling, but security, the deep sense of being held, of belonging that does not need constant proof. When that security is present, the alarm simply does not ring as loud. This changes how we might understand the ache. Jealousy is not hunger for more. It is hunger for certainty, for the quiet knowledge that we are kept. And the remedy is not to grasp more tightly, but to rest more fully in what is already there. You may find, if you listen, that what your jealousy has always wanted was not to win. It only ever wanted to feel sure that it was safe and loved, and not about to be left. For a time, a story circulated among scholars that somewhere in the world lived a people who felt no jealousy at all. The Trobriand Islanders of the Pacific were said to love freely, untouched by the green feeling the rest of us knew. But closer study told a different tale. When anthropologists looked and listened more carefully, they found that jealousy lived among the Trobrianders, too, expressed in their own ways, woven into their own customs and quarrels and reconciliations. The feeling had not been absent. It had only been overlooked by observers too quick to see what they hoped to find. And so the dream of a people without jealousy dissolved, as such dreams tend to. What remained was something more honest, and in its way more comforting. There is no human community anywhere that has escaped this feeling, which means there is nothing strange or shameful in carrying it yourself. It is simply part of the shared inheritance present on every island, in every valley, under every sky where human beings have ever loved one another. Notice what jealousy does to the field of your attention. The wide world dims. The many small details of a day fall away, and one thing, one person, one possibility grows enormous and bright. This narrowing is well documented. Jealousy, like other states of threat, focuses attention sharply onto the perceived source of danger, drawing cognitive resources toward it and away from everything else. The mind becomes a spotlight, fixed and intense, tracking the one thing it fears to lose. It is the same tunneling that helped our ancestors keep their eyes locked on a predator in the grass. Knowing this can loosen the grip a little. When the world narrows like that, it is not because the threat is truly so large, but because an old and useful machinery has switched on inside you, doing exactly what it was built to do. And the gentle way back is simply to widen the view again, to let the rest of the world return. To remember that beyond the single bright point, there is still a whole soft evening holding you larger than any single fear. Far out in the dark, stars gather in great clusters, thousands upon thousands of them traveling together through the galaxy in loose and glittering company. You might imagine such crowds would be perilous, all that fire so close. But the distances between stars are so vast that collisions are extraordinarily rare. Even in a dense cluster, each star is separated from its neighbors by spaces so wide that the stars can move together for hundreds of millions of years, bound by their shared gravity without ever touching. They belong to one another, held in a slow and patient dance, and still each keeps its place. There is a quiet lesson drifting in that arrangement. To belong to something does not mean to be crowded by it. The stars show us a kind of togetherness that asks for no surrender of self, no jostling, no fear of being pushed aside. They move as one company through the long dark, each shining on undimmed, near enough to be held and far enough to be free. And the night which holds them so gently is the same night holding you now. In the grip of jealousy, the feeling seems endless. It fills the whole horizon, and it is hard to imagine ever feeling otherwise. But the mind in such moments is a poor predictor of its own weather. Research on what psychologists call affective forecasting shows that people consistently overestimate how long and how strongly difficult emotions will last. We expect the ache to linger far longer than it does. In truth, even intense feelings tend to cool more quickly than we predict, softened by time, and by the simple fact that the mind cannot hold any alarm at full pitch forever. This is worth remembering on the nights the feeling seems permanent. It is not. The version of you caught in jealousy genuinely cannot see how soon the calmer version will return, but return it will almost certainly sooner than you fear. The feeling is a passing weather, not a climate. And somewhere just ahead of this moment, a quieter self is already waiting. The one who will look back and wonder gently how the storm ever seemed so wide. Out in the grasslands of the open prairie lives a small and unremarkable creature, a vole no larger than a child's hand. It looks like nothing special, and yet it carries one of the most devoted hearts in all of nature. The prairie vole forms lasting pair bonds, choosing a single mate and staying with that partner, sharing a nest, raising young together and defending the bond against intruders. Scientists study these small animals closely because their loyalty, unusual among rodents, is tied to the same brain chemicals, oxytocin and vasopressin, that shape attachment in us. The gentle vole guards its love as fiercely as anything on the plain. There is tenderness in learning this. The capacity to bond deeply and to protect that bond is not reserved for the grand or the powerful. It lives in the smallest and softest of creatures, threaded through the same chemistry that moves through you. So when you feel the pull to keep a love safe, you are in the oldest and gentlest of company kin to a quiet animal in the long prairie grass, guarding what it has chosen with its whole, small, steady heart. There is a single molecule at the heart of much of our tenderness, a chemical messenger called oxytocin, often known as the bonding hormone. It rises when we hold someone close, when a mother nurses her child, when trust deepens between two people. We tend to think of it only as warmth, but the same oxytocin that draws us toward those we love also heightens our vigilance over them. Studies have found that oxytocin can increase protective and even jealous responses, sharpening our attention to threats against our bonds. The chemistry of closeness and the chemistry of guarding are not separate systems, they are one. And so love and jealousy turn out to share a source mixed together at the level of the blood itself. This is not a flaw in the design. It is the design. The very thing that opens the heart also sets a watch upon it. To love deeply is at the chemical root, to care about keeping. And there is a strange peace in accepting that the two arrive together, that your tenderness and your watchfulness were poured from the same cup by the same gentle and ancient hand. Step into a household with two small children, and you will witness one of the earliest dramas of the human heart. A parent praises one child, and the other, barely out of toddlerhood, stiffens, reaches sometimes, cries out, suddenly desperate to be seen. Researchers studying young children have observed that by around 2 years of age, a child will show clear distress when a sibling receives attention or praise that they do not. The little one does not yet have the words to explain the feeling, but the body speaks plainly, leaning in, protesting, working to redraw the parent's gaze back toward itself. The response arrives early, long before a child could reason its way into it. There is something disarming in this. The feeling we sometimes scold in ourselves for being childish is quite literally among the first things a child reveals. It is not a corruption that life teaches us. It is part of the original equipment present almost from the start, and knowing that can soften our judgment of small children and of ourselves. Both of us, only ever wanting to remain inside the circle of someone's warm attention. Envy is a feeling that rarely shows its true face. It is one of the most disguised of all our emotions, slipping behind other expressions, borrowing their clothes, so that even we ourselves are often fooled. Psychologists note that envy is frequently masked, surfacing instead as irritation, criticism, indifference, or a cool dismissiveness toward the very thing we secretly long for. We tell ourselves we simply do not care for that person, or that their success was undeserved, when underneath lies a quieter ache we are reluctant to name. The disguise is so effective that envy is among the emotions people are least likely to admit even privately. And yet, there is a kind of mercy in understanding this. When you notice a strange, unearned irritation rising toward someone, it may be worth pausing gently to ask what lies beneath it. Often the answer is not dislike at all, but a hidden wish, a longing for something you saw in them and quietly wanted too. Naming it honestly takes the sting away. The feeling loses its power the moment it is allowed to step out from behind its mask and simply be seen. Look up some evening at the pale face of the moon hanging in its enormous quiet. It has circled us for billions of years, near enough to pull the very oceans, and yet it will never arrive, never close the distance, never touch the world it moves so deeply. The moon's gravity reaches across the empty dark and tugs at the seas of Earth, lifting them into the slow swell we call the tides. Twice each day the water rises and falls in answer to a body it can never reach. The pull is real, the effect immense, and still the two remain forever apart, held in a steady orbit that neither closes nor breaks. There is a strange grace in that arrangement. Some bonds are not meant to collapse the distance between things. The moon and the sea move each other profoundly, while staying exactly where they are, and the constancy of that faraway pull is its own kind of faithfulness. Perhaps not every longing needs to be satisfied to be beautiful. Some of the deepest connections hold us at a distance, steady and unbroken, asking only to remain in reach. Envy does its quiet work in the most ordinary places, not only in matters of love, but in the daily rooms where we earn our living. It moves beneath the surface of office life, shaping the small geographies of who we gather near and who we drift away from. Studies of workplaces have found that envy among colleagues subtly influences behavior, affecting cooperation, communication, and the willingness to help one another. People may unconsciously distance themselves from a co-worker whose success stirs the feeling, sitting a little farther away, sharing a little less, withholding the easy warmth they offer others. The envy is rarely spoken aloud, yet it bends the room around it. To notice this is to gain a little freedom from it. The next time a colleague's good fortune leaves a faint coolness in you, you might recognize the old pattern beginning the quiet drift toward distance. And you might choose instead to move a little closer, to let their success be a light rather than a shadow. The drift is not destiny, it is only a habit of the heart, and habits, gently noticed, can always be gently changed. There is a kinship between jealousy and grief that runs deeper than we might guess. They feel like different sorrows, one anticipating loss, the other living inside it. But to the brain, they are close relatives. Both jealousy and grief engage the brain's systems for attachment and for the pain of separation. Each is at its root a response to a bond under threat: jealousy, fearing a loss that has not yet come; grief, mourning one that already has. The same circuitry that aches when someone is gone aches in advance when we fear they might leave. The feelings are 2 points on a single map of love and its endings. Understanding this lends jealousy a certain dignity. It is not a small or petty thing. It is grief's quieter cousin, an anticipatory mourning, a love already bracing for a sorrow it hopes never to feel. And like grief, it deserves to be met with tenderness rather than shame. When you feel it stir, you might remember that it springs from the same deep place as your deepest losses that it is. In the end, only love refusing to let go. Down in the rocky crevices of the seafloor lives one of the strangest minds on earth, the octopus, a creature so solitary it seems almost to prefer its own company to all the world. It drifts and hunts alone, asking little of others. And yet even this most solitary of animals will choose a den, a particular hollow in the rock, and defend it against intruders, fending off other octopuses that venture too near. It guards its small, chosen home with real determination, despite wanting nothing else from company. The instinct to protect a claimed space runs deep, even in a creature built for solitude. There is something quietly reassuring in this. The wish to guard what is ours, to keep a place or a person safe from encroachment, is so fundamental that it appears even in lives lived almost entirely alone. It is not born of clinginess or weakness. It is woven into the basic fabric of being a creature in a world of others. And so the part of you that wishes to keep a little corner of life safely your own is in ancient company, kin even to the lone octopus, faithful to its single quiet home in the dark. Long before our ancestors spoke a single word, before any grammar or name existed, the body already knew the dread of being replaced. The feeling came first. The words came after struggling to catch up to something that was already there. We see this in how early the response appears in infants too young for language, and in animals who possess no words at all. The fear of losing one's place in another's affection does not depend on being able to describe it. It lives in older structures of the brain, the ones we share with creatures across the whole tree of life. Language merely arrived much later, to give a name to what the body had been feeling all along. And this tells us something gentle about ourselves. The ache of feeling replaceable is not a story we talk ourselves into. It is older than story, older than speech, written into us beneath the level of words. There is no arguing it away with logic, because it never came from logic. It can only be met the way the body understands, with warmth, with closeness, with the wordless reassurance that we are, after all, still held. There is an old instinct when jealousy arrives to hide it, to swallow the feeling and present a calm face as though admitting it would only make it more real. But the research points gently the other way. Studies of couples find that those who can speak openly about their jealousy, naming the feeling honestly rather than concealing it, tend to resolve it more quickly and experience less lasting distress. Spoken aloud in trust, the feeling loses much of its grip. Hidden, it tends to fester, growing larger in the dark. The simple act of saying it gives the other person a chance to offer the reassurance the feeling was quietly seeking all along. And so honesty here becomes a kind of tenderness toward oneself and toward another. To say, "I felt a little jealous today," is not weakness but courage, an opening of the door rather than a barring of it. The feeling once spoken can be met and held and softened between two people, instead of churning alone behind a calm and lonely face. What is named gently in trust rarely keeps its power for long. Consider a mountain vast and patient, lifting itself toward the sky across spans of time so long the mind can scarcely hold them. It rises by the breadth of a fingernail's growth each year, and it wears away just as slowly, grain by grain, over ages. The great mountain ranges of the earth take tens of millions of years to rise, and tens of millions more to erode back down toward the sea. The Appalachians, once as tall as any peaks on the planet, have been worn low by time so deep it dwarfs all of recorded history many times over. Against such patience, the span of a single human life is briefer than a single breath, and there is a strange comfort in standing, even in imagination, before that immensity. Every rivalry that has ever troubled a human heart, every small competition that once seemed so urgent, unfolds and ends within the time it takes a mountain to settle by the width of a hair. Our fiercest jealousies are written on water beside the slow stone, and to remember this is to feel for a moment the lightness of our smallness, held within something far older and far more patient than any of our fears. Here is one of the quieter difficulties of the human mind. When you imagine something painful, vividly enough, the brain responds nearly as it would to the real event. Memory and imagination borrow the same machinery, and the body does not always know which is which. Research on mental imagery has shown that imagining an event activates many of the same neural regions as actually experiencing or remembering it. This means that a betrayal merely pictured in the mind, a scene of loss that has not happened and may never happen, can stir the same alarm, the same hurt as a betrayal recalled. The body reacts to the vivid thought as though it were the thing itself. This is worth holding gently on the nights the mind spins difficult stories. Much of jealousy's suffering comes not from anything real but from scenes we paint ourselves, scenes the body cannot tell from truth. And so part of finding peace is learning slowly to notice when the mind has wandered into a story rather than a fact. The imagined hurt is real in its feeling, yes, but it is not real in the world. And you can gently choose to set the brush down. Even as you lie here drifting towards stillness, a part of you never fully sleeps. Beneath the surface of rest, the mind keeps a soft and constant watch over the people and the things you hold most dear. Neuroscientists have found that even during sleep, the brain continues to monitor the environment for what matters most. A sleeping parent will wake to the particular cry of their own child while sleeping through louder, less meaningful sounds. The brain prioritizes what we love, keeping a quiet sentinel awake, even as the rest of us lets go. This watchfulness does not rest when we do, and there is tenderness in that rather than burden. The same vigilance that can tip into jealousy is in its truest form simply love standing guard while you sleep. It is the reason a mother stirs at the smallest sound, the reason some part of us stays gently tethered to what we care for, even in the deep of the night. So as you settle now, you might think of that watchful corner not as worry, but as devotion keeping its soft and faithful post over everything you would not want to lose. Before they have ever drawn a breath, before they have seen a single face, twins are already learning the oldest lesson of living among others. In the close, warm dark, they share a space that was never quite large enough for two. Through ultrasound imaging, researchers have watched twins in the womb touch, nudge, and gently jostle one another as they grow, adjusting and readjusting within their shared and shrinking world. Long before birth, they are already negotiating closeness, already discovering that to be near another is to share the room you live in. The rehearsal for a whole life among others begins in the months before the world. There is something quietly moving in that early choreography. The work of sharing, of making room, of being one body beside another, starts before we are even born. It is not a burden imposed by the world, but a condition we arrive already practicing. And so the lifelong dance of nearness and distance, of holding our place while leaving room for another, began for all of us in the gentlest and most ancient of places in the dark, before we knew there was anything to share. In the small theaters of the natural world, even birds perform a kind of careful diplomacy. Watch closely, and you may see one feign a casual unconcern toward a rival, pecking at the ground, looking elsewhere, all while keeping a sharp and sidelong eye on everything that matters. Studies of bird behavior have documented how certain species monitor rivals indirectly attending closely to a competitor while appearing to ignore them, a strategy that lets them gather information without provoking a confrontation. The bird watches without seeming to watch, holding its attention on the threat while wearing the posture of indifference. It is a quiet performance, and a remarkably familiar one. We know this dance in ourselves. The studied casualness, the glance that pretends not to be a glance, the elaborate effort to appear unbothered by the very thing that occupies our whole attention. To learn that birds do it too is to feel a little less alone and a little less ashamed. The small disguises we wear around our jealousy are not uniquely human follies. They are ancient strategies, shared with the creatures of the air, all of us watching what we love while pretending softly that we are not. Of all the feelings that move through the human heart, envy is among the most secretive, the one we are least willing to confess even in the privacy of our own thoughts. We will admit to anger, to sadness, to fear, but envy we tend to bury. Researchers who study emotion have noted that envy is one of the feelings people are most reluctant to acknowledge in surveys and in conversation alike. We will readily report many uncomfortable emotions, but envy carries a particular shame, so we rename it, explain it away, or deny it altogether. It is by some measures the least admitted of all the common feelings of the heart. And yet this secrecy is part of what gives envy its power. A feeling we will not look at, cannot be soothed or understood. There is a quiet freedom in simply allowing it to be real, in admitting even just to yourself that yes, sometimes you wish you had what another has. That honesty costs nothing and changes everything. The feeling brought into the light and looked at kindly turns out to be far smaller and far more ordinary than the shame that kept it hidden. High in the mountains and across the polar reaches lie the great rivers of ice, the glaciers moving so slowly that to our eyes they seem entirely still. And yet within them, immense forces are at work, pressing and shifting across spans of time we can barely imagine. A glacier flows under its own enormous weight, the ice deep within, deforming and creeping forward, sometimes only a few inches in a day, the pressures within it, resolving over years and centuries rather than moments. What looks like frozen stillness is, in truth, a slow and ceaseless motion, a contest of forces playing out across human lifetimes and beyond. The ice is patient in a way nothing alive can match. There is a deep calm in contemplating such slowness. We live so much of our lives at the speed of urgency, our jealousies and worries, flaring and demanding to be answered now. But the glacier reminds us that some things move on a different clock entirely, working themselves out over centuries with no haste at all. And perhaps a little of that patience can settle into us. The understanding that not everything must be resolved tonight, that some things are allowed simply to take their slow and ancient time. The mind is forever measuring, comparing, placing itself among others. And it does this so automatically that it will compare us even to people we have never met, strangers glimpsed for a moment, faces in a crowd, lives we know nothing about. Research on social comparison shows that the brain engages in this measuring, almost reflexively sizing up our standing relative to others, even when those others are complete strangers with whom we have no real connection. The comparison machinery does not wait for relationship or relevance. It simply runs, quietly evaluating whenever another person enters our awareness, however briefly. To know this is to understand that the restless, comparing mind is not a personal failing but a built-in habit of being human. It is exhausting sometimes, this endless measuring against people whose lives we cannot truly see. But there is relief in recognizing it for what it is, an ancient reflex rather than a true reckoning. The stranger you compared yourself to knows nothing of you, and their life is a mystery even to themselves. You might let them go gently and return your attention to the only life you actually have to live, which is your own. The people of ancient Greece, who gave names and forms to so many of the forces moving through the human heart, did not overlook envy. They imagined it as a goddess, a figure named Thonos, the very spirit of envy and begrudging. In the old stories, this spirit was cursed in a particular way, unable ever to enjoy any good thing, consumed always by the goods possessed by others. Thonos could take no pleasure in what was, had only torment in what was elsewhere. The Greeks understood in shaping this figure that envy is a hunger that can never be fed, because it is fixed always on what lies just beyond reach, never on what is already held. And there is wisdom hidden in that ancient image. The myth quietly diagnoses the trap of envy, the way it keeps the gaze fixed forever, outward on others' fortunes, and never lets it rest on one's own. The cure, the Greeks implied, is the simplest and the hardest: to turn the eyes inward and homeward, to notice and to savor what is already quietly ours. For the moment, we truly enjoy what we have. The goddess of envy loses all her power over us. It would seem natural to envy most the people farthest above us, the impossibly wealthy, the wildly gifted, the distant great. But the heart does not work that way. Its envy is local, aimed close to home. Studies of envy consistently find that we feel it most sharply toward those who are similar to us, people of our own circle, our own field, our own roughly equal standing, who have something we lack. The neighbor, the colleague, the old classmate stirs the feeling far more than the remote celebrity ever could. Envy needs nearness and likeness to take hold. It thrives in the space between people who might easily have traded places. This explains something we often feel but rarely understand: why the small successes of those around us can sting more than the vast fortunes of strangers. It is because we measure ourselves against those we can imagine being. And there is a gentle freedom in seeing this clearly. The people who stir your envy are almost by definition your own kind, walking a path much like yours. They are less your rivals than your companions, fellow travelers whose nearness only proves how much you share. Reach down past thought and feeling, past whole regions of the brain, to the level of a single nerve cell, one tiny flicker of life among billions. Even there, at that smallest scale, the sense of fairness leaves its mark. In studies of primates, researchers recorded individual neurons that changed their firing patterns in response to inequity registering when a reward given to another did not match the one given to the self. A single cell deep in the brain altered its activity at the perception of an unequal share. The recognition of fairness and its absence is built into us right down to the firing of our nerves. There is something almost humbling in that. The feeling we sometimes dismiss as petty turns out to be inscribed in the very cells we are made of, present at the most fundamental level of the mind. It is not a moral failing layered on top of us by culture. It is part of the basic architecture as deep as anything we are, and to know that is to be a little gentler with ourselves. Recognizing that the longing for fairness and the ache when it is missing were written into us before we ever had a say. Some of the light that reaches us on a clear, dark night has been traveling for so long that it began its journey before there were any human beings at all, before there was a single word for any feeling, before envy or love or longing had ever been named. The light from the most distant galaxies we can see has crossed the dark for millions, even billions of years before arriving at our eyes. It left its source in an age before humanity, an age before language, and it has been traveling patient and unhurried ever since. When it finally lands on us, it carries no message and no judgment, only the quiet fact of its long arrival. And there is a profound peace in receiving that ancient light. It knows nothing of our troubles, our comparisons, our small, fierce rivalries. It simply arrives, having crossed unimaginable distances to reach the place where you happen to be looking up. Beneath such light, every worry of the heart grows quiet and small. You are held for a moment in something so vast and so old that it asks nothing of you at all, only that you rest and look and let it gently fall. Cast your mind back to the earliest human bands, small groups huddled against a vast and dangerous world where survival depended entirely on staying together. In that fragile setting, the bonds between people were not luxuries. They were life itself. Many researchers who study the evolution of emotion suggest that jealousy may have served an early and useful purpose, helping to protect the alliances and pair bonds that early humans depended on for survival and for raising the young. By making us alert to threats against our closest relationships, the feeling may have helped hold those vital bonds intact through dangerous times. Scientists still debate exactly how this shaped us, but the thread of usefulness runs through their thinking. And this casts the feeling in a kinder light. The jealousy that can trouble us today may be the long echo of something that once helped our ancestors survive, a guardian instinct from a time when losing a bond could mean losing everything. It is not a flaw the modern world invented. It is an inheritance handed down from people who needed one another desperately and who held on against the dark with everything they had. In a quiet laboratory, a small experiment revealed something startling about the depth of our sense of fairness. Two monkeys sat side by side, each performing the same simple task, each expecting the same reward until the rewards stopped being equal. In the now famous studies, capuchin monkeys were given a piece of cucumber for completing a task, and they accepted it happily until they saw a neighbor receive a sweeter grape for the very same work. At that point, many monkeys refused the cucumber outright, sometimes hurling it back, rejecting a perfectly good reward, simply because another had received better. The injustice mattered more to them than the food itself. There is a strange dignity in that refusal. These animals, with no words and no philosophy, demonstrated a sense of fairness so deep they would forego a real reward to protest an unequal one. And it tells us that our own sensitivity to unfairness, the sting we feel when another receives more, is not pettiness, but something ancient and shared, woven through the minds of creatures far beyond ourselves. The longing for things to be even runs deeper and older than we are. Notice the precise moment when jealousy strikes hardest. It is rarely the loss itself that brings the sharpest pain. It is the threat of loss, the possibility, the not yet knowing, that twists most cruelly in the chest. Psychologists studying jealousy have found that the feeling tends to peak in anticipation in the uncertain space before anything has actually happened, when a bond seems merely threatened rather than truly broken. The mind suspended in not knowing generates more distress than even a settled outcome often does. It is the suspense, the open question, that the heart finds hardest to bear. This points towards something quietly useful. So much of jealousy's suffering lives in imagined futures, in threats that have not arrived and may never come. The feeling feeds on uncertainty, on the gap between what is and what might be. And so part of finding peace is learning slowly to return to what is actually here in this moment, where nothing has been lost at all. The threat lives only in the mind's projection. The present, if you rest in it, is almost always safer and quieter than the fear. Watch a great river spreading across a wide valley, and you may see it split into many strands, each one weaving and winding, crossing and recrossing, as though competing for the same low ground. Geologists call this a braided river, and it is one of the loveliest patterns water makes. In a braided river, the water divides into many channels that separate and rejoin again and again, each strand finding its own path before merging back into the whole. The channels shift constantly, one taking the lead, then another, the whole pattern rearranging itself over time until the separate strands flow together once more as a single body of water moving toward the sea. There is a gentle wisdom in that flowing form. The strands seem to compete, each pressing for its own way through the valley, and yet they belong always to the same river, destined to merge again downstream. Their separation is never truly division. And perhaps our own rivalries are something like this, momentary divergences in a single shared current. The small competitions of a life that all, in the end, flow back together into the same wide and patient water. It would be lovely to believe that deep, lasting love eventually erases jealousy altogether, that enough years and enough trust might quiet the feeling completely. The truth is gentler and more honest than that. Research on long-term relationships finds that people who feel secure with their partners do not stop feeling jealousy entirely, but they feel it less intensely and recover from it more easily. The feeling does not vanish, it softens. It grows quieter, less sharp, more easily soothed, settling into the background rather than seizing the whole heart. Security does not abolish jealousy. It simply takes away its power to wound deeply. And there is comfort in that realistic picture. We need not aim for a love so perfect that no jealousy ever stirs, for no such love has ever existed. We can aim instead for security, for the deep trust that lets the feeling come and go gently like a small cloud across a steady sky. The goal was never to feel nothing. It was only to feel safe enough that the feeling, when it comes, can pass through quietly and leave the love unharmed. There is a quiet incompatibility between two states of the heart, envy and gratitude, that turns out to be one of the gentlest secrets of contentment. The two do not sit well together. Where one rises, the other tends to fade. Studies in the psychology of well-being have found that gratitude and envy are difficult to hold, at the same time that actively appreciating what we have tends to diminish the longing for what others possess. The grateful heart, attending to its own gifts, has less attention left over for comparison. The two feelings draw on the same inner gaze, and that gaze can only point in one direction at a time, outward in envy or homeward in thanks. This offers a quiet and practical kind of grace. When envy stirs, one of the surest ways to ease it is not to argue with it, but to turn gently toward gratitude, to name a few of the things already held and quietly loved. The feeling cannot easily survive that turning. And so the cure for the ache of wanting more turns out to be the simple ancient practice of noticing how much is already softly enough. When jealousy takes hold, the brain does not light up at random. It activates a particular set of regions, the same ones that have always helped us detect deception, unfairness, and broken trust. Jealousy in the brain looks a great deal like vigilance. Brain imaging studies of jealousy have shown heightened activity in regions associated with detecting social threats and violations of trust. The neural machinery our species evolved for noticing when we are being deceived or treated unfairly. The jealous brain is in a sense a brain on watch, scanning for signs of betrayal, drawing on the oldest tools we have for protecting ourselves within a web of relationships. To understand this is to see jealousy not as madness, but as machinery, an ancient detection system doing precisely what it was built to do. The trouble is that the system can misfire, sounding its alarm at shadows, at imagined threats, at nothing real at all. And so part of living well with this inheritance is learning to thank the watchman without always believing him, to acknowledge the alarm while gently checking again and again whether there was ever truly anything there. In the far northern skies, on certain dark nights, the heavens themselves begin to glow curtains of green and violet light, rippling silently overhead the aurora, one of the gentlest wonders our planet offers. It asks for nothing. It competes with nothing. It simply shines. The northern lights appear when charged particles streamed out from the sun reach the earth and collide with gases high in the atmosphere, causing them to glow. The light is purely a gift of that meeting the sun, reaching across the void, and the earth's own air answering in color. There is no struggle in it, no rivalry, only the quiet, luminous result of one thing reaching out and another receiving. And there is something to rest in beneath such a sky. The aurora glows, not because it has won anything or taken anything from another, but simply because a connection was made across the dark. It is beauty born of pure reaching, pure receiving, pure being touched. Perhaps the loveliest things in any life are like this, not the prizes we compete for, but the quiet glow that rises when one thing simply gently reaches another. We might wish that a childhood full of love could protect a person from ever feeling jealousy at all. It cannot, and it was never meant to. But warmth in childhood does something quieter and more lasting than that. Research on attachment and child development finds that children raised with consistent warmth and security still experience jealousy, as every child does, but they tend to recover from it more quickly and to manage the feeling more gently. As they grow, the early warmth does not erase the emotion. It builds a kind of inner steadiness, a foundation of feeling safe, that lets the child meet jealousy without being overwhelmed by it. There is real hope in that finding, and a kind of reassurance for anyone who loves a child. We cannot and need not raise a child who never feels jealous. What we can give them is the deeper gift, a sense of being securely held, that lets the feeling pass through them more easily for the rest of their lives. And the same is quietly true for us. The more securely we come to feel, even now, the more gently the old feeling moves through us, and the sooner it lets us go. There is a reason we speak of a gut feeling, a reason jealousy so often lodges itself not in the head, but lower in the belly, as a knot or a churning or a hollow ache. The connection between the gut and the brain is real, and it is constant. The gut and the brain are linked by the vagus nerve and a steady traffic of chemical signals, a connection so rich that scientists sometimes call the gut a second brain. During emotional stress, including jealousy, this gut-brain axis becomes active, which is why strong feelings are so often felt physically in the stomach, as tightness, unease, or that unmistakable churning sensation. The feeling is not only in your mind, It is in your body, quite literally. And there is a strange comfort in knowing this. When jealousy sits heavy in your stomach, you are not imagining it, and you are not weak. You are feeling a genuine conversation between two parts of yourself, ancient and deeply wired. To soothe the body, then, is to soothe the feeling, and the reverse is also true. A slow breath, a settling of the belly, a softening of the body can reach the feeling directly, gently from below, even before the mind has found its way to calm. Stand beneath the canopy of an old forest and look up at the way the trees compete for the light, each crown reaching each branch, angling toward the sun. It seems from above like a quiet contest, every tree striving for its share of the sky. But beneath your feet something tender is happening. Beneath the soil, the roots of many trees are connected through vast networks of fungal threads, sometimes called the wood wide web, through which trees share water, nutrients, and even chemical signals with one another. A tall tree may send sugars through this network to a struggling seedling in the shade. The same forest that competes for light above ground is quietly cooperating, sharing its resources below. And there is a deep lesson woven through the soil. What looks like pure competition on the surface is underneath a web of generosity and mutual care. The trees give to one another in the dark even as they reach for the light. Perhaps we are more like the forest than we know our visible rivalries, resting always on a hidden foundation of connection, our roots unseen, quietly feeding one another all along. Some phrases are so true that they refuse to die, passed from mouth to mouth across the centuries, outliving the language and the world that made them. One such phrase came from the pen of a single playwright more than 400 years ago, and we still reach for it today. In his play, Othello, William Shakespeare gave jealousy its most enduring name, calling it the green-eyed monster that mocks the very heart it feeds upon. The image was so apt, so perfectly matched to the feeling, that it entered the language permanently and has remained there ever since, spoken by people who have never read a word of the play that birthed it. There is something quietly moving in that endurance. A feeling so universal that the perfect words for it once found could never be forgotten, carried forward across 4 centuries by the simple fact that everyone in every generation recognized exactly what they meant. When you call your own jealousy the green-eyed monster, you join a long line of human beings reaching back through time, all of them naming the same old companion of the heart, all of them in that, naming a little less alone. There is a particular hour, late and quiet, when feelings the daylight kept at bay come drifting to the surface. As the body settles towards sleep and the mind loosens its grip, the careful defenses of the waking day grow thin, and old worries slip through. Psychologists note that the hour before sleep is when the mind is least guarded, when the distractions and structures of the day fall away, and intrusive thoughts, including jealous ones, surface more readily. With nothing left to occupy it, the unoccupied mind turns inward, and the feelings we managed to outrun all day finally catch up to us in the dark and quiet. And so, if jealousy or worry visits you in these late hours, know that there is nothing wrong with you, and nothing especially true about the thoughts that come. They arrive simply because the mind has grown soft and open, because the guards have gone off duty, not because the night has revealed some hidden truth. The feelings of the late hour are not wiser than the feelings of the day. They are only quieter and more easily believed. You can let them drift past the way you let the day drift past, gently, on the way towards sleep. In the bright commerce of a summer meadow, even the smallest creatures stake their claims. A honeybee, having found a flower rich with nectar, will sometimes guard it, defending the sweetness against other bees who would share in the find. Researchers have observed that some bees display territorial behavior around rich food sources, defending a patch of flowers and chasing away competitors to keep the nectar for themselves and their hive. The sweetness they guard was made by the flower, offered freely by the meadow, and yet the small bee will defend it as its own, driven by the same ancient impulse to protect a valued resource that moves through so many living things. There is something both familiar and gently humbling in this. The instinct to guard a good thing, even a good thing we did not create and cannot truly own, runs through the whole living world, down to the tiniest workers of the hive. It is not greed exactly. It is the deep old logic of survival, the wish to keep what sustains us close. And to recognize it in the bee is to hold our own protectiveness more lightly, seeing it as nature, not failing, woven through every creature that has ever found something sweet worth keeping. The watchfulness that can make jealousy so painful has another older face, one of pure devotion. The same alertness to threat, the same readiness to guard what we love, is what kept our ancestors awake beside their sleeping children through the long and dangerous nights. Across human history, the survival of the young depended on caregivers, who stayed vigilant, who slept lightly, and woke quickly attuned to any sign of danger near the ones they protected. This deep, protective watchfulness is woven into our nature, and it is the very same capacity that turned toward a relationship becomes the alertness we call jealousy. The watching heart is at root, a guarding heart, and there is a way of holding this that softens everything. The vigilance you may feel as jealousy is not in its origin a hostile or shameful thing. It is the same faithful watchfulness that has bent over sleeping children since the dawn of our kind. The same love that stays awake to keep what is precious safe. Understood this way, even jealousy reveals its gentler source. The deep and ancient instinct simply to protect the ones we cannot bear to lose. Far out at the cold edges of our solar system, travel the comets, lonely wanderers on enormous looping orbits, vanishing into the dark for ages before swinging back faithful to schedules so long they dwarf the whole of human memory. Some comets follow orbits so vast that a single trip around the sun takes thousands, even tens of thousands of years. They depart into the deep cold of the outer dark and return on a schedule longer than recorded history, keeping an appointment set in motion before our oldest stories were ever told. Their faithfulness operates on a timescale no human grudge could ever match. And there is a quiet perspective offered by these distant travelers. We hold our small resentments so tightly as though they mattered across all of time, when in truth, a single comet's journey outlasts every grudge that every human has ever carried. The comet returns patient and unbothered, having let go of nothing because it never grasped at anything in the first place. Beneath such patient and ancient motion, our own held hurts grow lighter and easier gently to set down. The body, it turns out, often knows before the mind does. Jealousy registers in our physical signals in heart rate and skin and breath, sometimes before we have consciously realized that we feel anything at all. In laboratory studies, researchers measuring physiological signals like heart rate and skin conductance have detected the body's response to a jealousy-provoking situation before participants reported being aware of the feeling. The body reacted first, its ancient alarm systems responding to the threat, while conscious awareness lagged behind, catching up only moments later to name what the flesh already knew. There is something both humbling and reassuring in this. So much of our emotional life unfolds beneath the level of awareness, the body quietly responding to the world, while the thinking mind plays catch-up. And it means that when you finally notice a feeling rising, it has, in a sense, already been with you for a little while. To learn to listen to the body gently is to hear these feelings earlier and more kindly to meet them as they arrive, rather than after they have already taken hold, and to soothe them softly from the very first quiet signal. Beneath the surface of reefs and rivers, certain fish wear their feelings on their skin, quite literally. When a rival appears, their colors shift and deepen the body, announcing what it feels before any choice could be made. Many fish can change their coloration rapidly in response to social situations, and the appearance of a rival can trigger a visible shift, the skin darkening or brightening, as the fish's physiology responds to the challenge. The change is not chosen or controlled. It is the body confessing its state outwardly. broadcasting an inner response through the surface of the skin for all the underwater world to see. There is a strange honesty in that, and a gentle reflection of ourselves. We too betray our feelings through the body, in the flush that rises to a face, the tension that enters a posture, the quickening we cannot hide. Our inner states leak outward despite us written on us as plainly as color on a fish. And perhaps there is freedom in accepting that we are not as hidden as we imagine, that our feelings will show, and that there is no shame in being a creature whose heart sometimes rises visibly to the surface. Here is one of the gentlest findings in all the study of jealousy, and one of the most useful. The feeling eases measurably when a person simply pauses to remember a time they felt deeply and securely loved. Research on attachment and emotion has shown that bringing to mind an experience of being loved and accepted, a memory of secure connection, can reduce jealousy and the distress that comes with it. The recollection seems to remind the nervous system of its own safety, calming the alarm by drawing on the felt memory of having been held. The cure, in part, is memory itself, the simple act of returning to a moment of being cherished. And this places a quiet remedy within reach of anyone at any hour. When the feeling rises, you need not fight it or reason with it. You can simply remember summoning to mind a single moment when you felt truly loved, truly safe, truly held by someone who wanted you near. The body listens to such memories. It softens in their presence. And in that softening, the old ache loosens its grip, soothed not by proof or possession but by the gentle remembrance that you have been and are beloved. At the very largest scale we can imagine, across distances that strain the mind, whole galaxies are moving, drifting slowly toward one another, through the immense dark, drawn together not by any contest but by the patient pull of belonging. Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, is moving steadily toward its neighbor, the great Andromeda galaxy, the two drawn together by gravity across the vast emptiness between them, destined to meet and merge billions of years from now. They are not racing or competing. They are simply falling gently toward each other, two enormous spirals of stars answering the oldest pull in the universe, the quiet insistence of things to come together. And there is a vast tenderness in that slow approach. Even the galaxies, it seems, are drawn toward union rather than apart, the deepest force in the cosmos being not rivalry but attraction, not separation but the long, patient gathering of things into one another. Beneath all our small fears of being left, of being divided from what we love, the universe itself is quietly leaning the other way, forever pulling its scattered pieces home, forever drawing what belongs together slowly across the ages into one. Not all envy turns bitter. There is a gentler form of it, one that does not wish to pull another down but quietly lights a path forward, turning the ache of wanting into the energy of becoming. Psychologists distinguish between two kinds of envy: a malicious form that wishes harm to the one envied, and a benign form that inspires us to improve, to work toward what we admire in another. This benign envy has been shown to sharpen motivation and effort, channeling the feeling into growth rather than resentment. The same spark that can corrode can also turn a different way, illuminate. And there is real hope in that distinction. The feeling itself is not the enemy. What matters is the direction we let it carry us toward bitterness or toward becoming. When you notice envy rising at another's achievement, you stand at a quiet crossroads, free to ask whether their light might show you your own way forward rather than darken your path. The fire that can burn can also warm, can also guide. And often the difference lies in nothing more than which way gently we choose to face. In the miniature world of the undergrowth, an unlikely partnership unfolds, one that braids competition and cooperation so tightly they can scarcely be told apart. Ants in their countless thousands tend herds of tiny aphids the way shepherds tend their flocks. Certain ants protect aphids from predators and even move them to better feeding spots. And in return, the aphids produce a sweet substance called honeydew that the ants collect and eat. The ants compete fiercely with other colonies, yet within their own ranks they cooperate completely. And with the aphids, they form a partnership of mutual benefit, each giving something the other needs. There is something instructive in that tangled arrangement. The natural world rarely sorts itself neatly into rivals and allies. More often, competition and cooperation are folded together, woven into the same relationships, the same lives. The ant competes and cooperates in the same breath, and so in truth do we. Our connections are seldom purely one thing or the other. They hold both, always. The giving and the guarding side by side, and there is no shame in a heart that, like the meadow, contains them both at once. Much of how we respond to another's success depends not on the success itself, but on something we carry within a quiet sense of our own worth and security. The steadier that inner ground, the less a rival's good fortune disturbs us. Studies have found that people with a secure sense of self-esteem and self-worth respond to others' achievements with less threat and less envy than those whose sense of self is more fragile. When we feel fundamentally secure in our own value, another's success does not register as a danger because it takes nothing from us. The alarm simply does not sound, or sounds more softly, when the ground beneath us feels firm. And this points gently toward where real peace is built. It is not built by surpassing everyone around us, an endless and exhausting task, but by tending the quiet foundation of our own self-worth. The more securely you come to rest in your own value, the less the brightness of others can dim you. Their light becomes simply light, beautiful and unthreatening, because you no longer need to be the only one shining to know that you too are enough. When jealousy flares, the instinct is often to demand proof, to seek evidence, to interrogate and verify until the doubt is settled. But the feeling does not actually calm fastest under proof. It calms fastest under reassurance, under warmth. Research on relationships and attachment suggests that jealousy and the anxiety beneath it respond most readily to emotional reassurance, to expressions of love and commitment, rather than to factual evidence or proof of fidelity. The feeling springs from a fear about the security of a bond, and so it is soothed most directly by signals of that bond's strength, by tenderness rather than by testimony. The heart wants comfort more than it wants a case, and there is something freeing in understanding this. So much energy can be spent chasing certainty, gathering proof, trying to think our way out of a feeling that was never really about facts at all. What the jealous heart truly asks for is simpler and gentler than evidence. It asks only to be reassured that it is loved, that it is safe, that it will not be left. And that reassurance, freely given or freely remembered, reaches the feeling far more swiftly than any proof ever could. Twice each day, all around the world, the great oceans rise and fall in answer to the moon, lifting toward it and settling again in a rhythm older than any shore. The seas give themselves to this motion, endlessly, freely, asking nothing in return. The tides are the ocean's response to the moon's gravity, the water rising as the moon passes overhead and falling as it moves on a vast and faithful rhythm repeated without pause across the whole face of the planet. The sea does not resist or resent this pull. It simply answers, rising and falling, giving its motion to the moon over and over through every day and every night forever. And there is a kind of grace in that endless, ungrudging response. The ocean gives without keeping count, moves without demanding anything back, faithful to a distant pull it can never possess. Perhaps the deepest forms of love are something like this tide. A giving that does not measure or bargain, that simply rises again and again in answer to what it loves, content in the giving itself. The sea has been loving the moon this way since before there was anyone to watch, and it loves it still. Walk into any gathering of people, and beneath your conscious awareness, an old social calculus begins. The mind quietly tracks the room, noting who is being listened to, who holds the most attention, where the warmth and the focus seem to gather. Research on social cognition shows that people automatically and unconsciously monitor status and attention within a group, tracking who is being attended to, even among strangers, even without any awareness that they are doing it. This monitoring is part of our deep social wiring, a legacy of lives lived in groups where one's standing genuinely mattered for survival. The mind keeps these accounts, whether we wish it to or not. To know this is to be a little kinder to ourselves in social moments. The faint awareness of where attention flows, the quiet sensitivity to who is being noticed, is not vanity or insecurity. It is an ancient and universal feature of the human mind running quietly in everyone in the room at once. We are all always gently tracking one another, all hoping in our small way to remain within the circle of warmth. And there is a strange tenderness in that shared and unspoken longing common to every stranger in every room. Across all the vast variety of human cultures, with their countless different customs and values and ways of living, one feeling appears again and again in nearly every society anthropologists have ever studied. The capacity for jealousy is very nearly universal. While cultures differ greatly in how jealousy is expressed, what triggers it, and how it is judged, the underlying capacity for the feeling has been documented across an enormous range of human societies around the world. It crosses every boundary of geography and tradition, surfacing wherever human beings form close bonds with one another, which is to say, everywhere. The feeling appears to be part of our shared human inheritance. And there is a quiet comfort in that universality. Whatever you may feel about your own jealousy, you share it with very nearly every human being who has ever lived on every continent in every age. It is not a private flaw or a personal weakness. It is a thread of the common human fabric woven through our species from its very beginnings. To carry it is simply to be human, in the company of all the billions who came before and all who live alongside you now. Every one of them knowing in their own way this same old feeling of the heart. In the wild forests and tundra, wolves live their lives in packs, and within those packs there is real tension, a constant quiet negotiation of rank and position. And yet these same wolves, who test one another over status, hunt together, raise their young together, and sleep pressed warmly side by side. Wolf packs maintain a social order, and there is genuine tension and occasional conflict over rank within the group. But the same animals that navigate these tensions also cooperate closely in hunting, share in caring for the pups, and rest together in close physical contact, their bonds holding firm through and beyond their rivalries. Competition and deep companionship coexist within the very same pack, and there is something steadying in that coexistence. The wolves show us that tension within a bond need not break it, that rivalry and closeness can live together in the same relationship, the same family, the same warm pile of sleeping bodies. We need not be free of all friction with those we love in order to belong with them completely. The pack endures not because it has no tensions, but because the closeness in the end runs deeper than the rivalry holding everyone together through the cold and ancient night. The oldest light we can perceive in all the universe is a faint glow that fills the whole sky. A light so ancient, it began its journey not long after the universe itself was born. It has been traveling toward us patiently for nearly the entire age of all that exists. This glow, called the cosmic microwave background, is the afterglow of the early universe. Light released when the cosmos was very young, now stretched and cooled by billions of years of travel, until it bathes us unseen from every direction at often once. It is the most ancient light there is, and it surrounds us always gently, having crossed almost the whole history of time to reach the place where we are. There is a profound peace in being held within that oldest of lights. It is indifferent to all our troubles, untouched by any of our small fears, and yet there is a kind of kindness in its constancy, in the way it surrounds us, always patient and unhurried, asking nothing. Beneath such ancient light, the worries of a single evening grow very quiet. you are wrapped even now in the gentle afterglow of the beginning of everything, held in a light older than the stars themselves. When jealousy comes, it often arrives as a vague and formless dread, a cloud of feeling with no clear shape. But those who can pause and name precisely what they fear to lose tend to find the feeling easing fastest of all. Research on emotional regulation has consistently found that naming an emotion, identifying it clearly and specifically, reduces its intensity, a process sometimes called affect labeling. When we move from a vague jealous unease to a clear statement of what we actually fear, perhaps the loss of closeness, of attention, of feeling chosen, the feeling becomes smaller, more manageable, less overwhelming. The simple act of naming begins to dissolve it, and this places a quiet power within reach. The next time jealousy rises in you, formless and heavy, you might gently ask yourself what exactly you are afraid of losing. Not the surface of the thing, but the deep heart of it. Often the answer is something tender and simple, a wish to remain close to matter, to not be left behind. And in naming it clearly, you take much of its power away, transforming a vague dread into a small human nameable longing, which is always easier to hold and to soothe than to set down. There is a sound to which the human brain responds faster than almost any other, a sound that cuts through sleep and distraction and noise and reaches straight to the deepest centers of care. It is the cry of one's own child. Brain imaging studies have shown that a mother's brain responds with remarkable speed and specificity to the cry of her own infant, activating regions tied to caregiving and attention within fractions of a second faster than to other sounds and faster than to other babies' cries. The response is immediate, automatic, and powerful, a devotion wired so deeply that it bypasses conscious thought entirely. And this reveals something tender about the watchful heart. The same swift, protective attention that can express itself as jealousy is at its origin. This very thing, the instant turning of the whole self toward the one we love, the readiness to respond before any thought, before any threat. It is love at its quickest and most instinctive. To carry such watchfulness is to carry the same ancient wiring that turns a parent toward a crying child in an instant, the deepest care our species knows, faithful and fast and older than reason itself. High in the forest canopy, if you lie back and look up, you may notice something quietly remarkable. The crowns of certain trees do not touch. They stop just short of one another, leaving slender channels of sky between them, a gentle pattern called crown shyness. In some forests, trees of the same species grow their canopies right up to the edge of their neighbors, and then stop, leaving narrow gaps between the crowns, so that the treetops never quite overlap. Scientists are still not entirely certain why this happens, though it may help trees avoid damaging one another or reduce the spread of pests. Whatever the cause, the result is a canopy where each tree leaves room for the others. There is a quiet grace traced across that sky. The trees, reaching always for light, nonetheless, hold back at the last moment, making space, sharing the brightness rather than crowding it entirely for themselves. They have found in their slow and rooted way a kind of courtesy, a generosity, written into the very shape of how they grow. And perhaps there is something to learn from that careful spacing, this gentle holding back that lets everyone in the end have their own piece of the sky. Strip away all the discomfort and the shame, and a quieter truth may rest at the center of jealousy. Perhaps it is not the opposite of love at all, but love itself. In a particular moment, the moment it becomes aware that it could one day end. When we love something deeply, we open ourselves to the possibility of losing it, and jealousy may be at its root, simply love grown conscious of its own fragility, love that has noticed how much it has to lose. The feeling arises precisely because the bond matters, because the heart has something it would ache to be without. There is no jealousy where there is no love. The one depends entirely on the other. And to understand it this way is to hold the feeling with far more tenderness. Your jealousy in this light is not a betrayal of your love, but a strange and clumsy proof of it, the shadow that only deep caring can cast. It is love that has glimpsed its own preciousness and trembled, and rather than scold it, you might simply acknowledge it gently for what it is. The sign of a heart that has found something worth keeping, something it would grieve to lose, something it loves. Take a slow breath now and notice how freely it comes. The air enters and leaves without cost, without struggle, without taking anything from anyone. There is enough for you and enough for everyone breathing alongside you in the world tonight. The atmosphere of the earth holds an abundance of air, so vast that every breathing creature on the planet draws from it freely, without depleting it, without competing for it. Your breath does not diminish the breath of the person beside you or the breath of anyone anywhere. The air is simply there, given freely, enough for all the countless lungs that rise and fall across the whole sleeping world at once. And there is a deep and quiet comfort in that abundance, especially for a heart prone to fearing scarcity. Not everything must be competed for. Not everything is in short supply. The very air that keeps you alive is shared by all freely, endlessly, with no rivalry at all. As you breathe now slowly, you might let that truth settle into you. The knowledge that, in at least this most essential thing, there is plenty, and you take nothing from anyone simply by living. Across the frozen vastness of the far south, where the cold is almost beyond imagining, certain penguins keep a faithfulness that endures the harshest conditions on Earth. They cross great distances of ice to return each season to the very same partner. Some penguin species are known for returning to the same mate year after year, recognizing one another by voice among thousands, reuniting across the crowded ice to raise their young together once more. They endure brutal, cold, and long separations, and still, they find their way back to the one they have chosen, guarding a bond that must survive the most unforgiving place on the planet. There is something deeply moving in that loyalty maintained against such odds. In a landscape of pure white cold where survival itself is a daily struggle, these creatures still make room for faithfulness, still cross the ice to find the familiar voice, still choose again and again the same beloved companion. The bond is worth the cold to them. And perhaps it tells us something about what bonds are for, that even in the hardest of worlds, the warmth of a chosen closeness is among the things most worth keeping and most worth crossing great distances to find. There is a particular feeling that seems to quiet envy, almost completely gently dissolving it the moment it arrives. It is awe, the experience of standing before something vast, something far larger than ourselves, that lifts us out of our small comparisons entirely. Research on the emotion of awe has found that experiences of vastness and wonder, a night sky, a great ocean, a towering mountain, tend to shrink our sense of self-importance and reduce self-focused feelings, including envy. In the presence of something genuinely immense, the petty calculus of who has more simply falls away. Awe reorients us, drawing our attention outward and upward, away from the small accounts we keep. And this is part of why nights like this one matter, why turning the mind toward the vast and the ancient soothes the heart. When you contemplate the immensity of the stars or the deep patience of the mountains, your own rivalries grow quiet, not through effort, but through perspective. Awe does gently what willpower cannot, loosening the grip of envy by reminding you how small all such things truly are, and how vast and wondrous is the world that holds them, and you within it. The intense physical alarm of jealousy, the racing heart, the flood of stress, the body braced for threat, is not something the body can maintain for long. Like all such states of arousal, it tires and softens and fades because the body is built to return to calm. The stress response that fuels jealousy is metabolically costly, and the body cannot sustain it indefinitely. After a surge of stress hormones, the body naturally moves to restore balance, the nervous system shifting back toward rest, the heart slowing the alarm, winding down. This return to calm is not something we must force. It is what the body does on its own, given a little time. And there is real reassurance in that built-in mercy. However intense the feeling is in its moment, your body is already, even then, beginning the work of returning you to calm. The alarm cannot last. The physiology of it simply runs down like a wave that has spent its force, leaving the shore quiet again. So when jealousy grips you hard, you might remember that this very grip is temporary by its nature, that your body is wise and tiring of the alarm and carrying you gently and certainly back towards stillness. In a field of sunflowers beneath a bright morning sky, something quietly coordinated unfolds. The young flowers turn their faces toward the sun and follow it across the day, all of them tracking the same light, all of them moving together in the same slow arc. Young sunflowers exhibit a behavior called heliotropism, turning to follow the sun across the sky from east to west during the day, then turning back overnight to face east again for the dawn. A whole field of them moves in unison, every face tracking the same light, and yet spaced as they are, they do not block one another. Each one receives the light it needs, and there is a lovely image woven into that shared turning. The flowers all want the same thing, all reach for the same single sun, and yet there is no rivalry in their reaching, only a quiet harmony, a whole field leaning together toward the light. They show that shared desire need not mean competition, that many can turn toward the same brightness and all be nourished by it. Perhaps the things most worth wanting are like the sun, in this way, vast enough that everyone can have their share with no one cast into shadow by another's reaching. Our memory of emotional moments is strangely uneven. We remember the sharp feelings of jealousy with great vividness, the scene burned clearly into us, and yet we tend to badly misjudge how long the feeling itself actually lasted. Research on emotional memory shows that intense emotional experiences are encoded vividly and remembered clearly, while at the same time, people tend to overestimate the duration of negative feelings in memory. We recall the peak of the feeling sharply, but our memory stretches its length, making it seem to have lasted far longer than it truly did. The vividness fools us about the time, and this is worth holding gently as you look back on difficult moments. The jealousy you remember as having consumed you for so long likely passed more quickly than memory suggests, its real duration shorter than its vivid imprint implies. The feeling was sharp, yes, but it was also brief, briefer than it seems in recollection. And the same will be true of the difficult feelings still to come. They will be vivid in the moment and vivid in memory, but in truth they will pass quickly, far more quickly than you fear, leaving you soon enough returned to calm. Notice how the body answers safety. When we feel truly secure, truly held, truly belonging, the heart slows, the breath deepens, the whole system settles into ease. It is the precise opposite of what jealousy does, and the body knows the difference completely. When we feel safe and securely connected to others, the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and restore system, becomes more active, slowing the heart and calming the body. This is the physiological signature of belonging, and it stands in direct contrast to the quickened, aroused state of jealousy and threat. Safety and belonging written in the body look like slowness, softness, and calm. And there is something to lean toward in that contrast, a direction the body itself points us. The way out of jealousy's quickening is not to win or to grasp, but to find again the felt sense of belonging that slows the heart. As you lie here now, perhaps you can feel a little of that settling, the slowing breath, the easing body, the deep old signal of safety. This is the state the heart was always reaching for. Not victory, not certainty, only this, the quiet, slowing peace of knowing you belong. Far out in the dark, many of the points of light we call stars are not single at all, but pairs, two stars bound together, circling endlessly around a shared center that belongs to neither one alone. In a binary star system, two stars orbit a common center of mass, a balance point that sits between them in the empty space they share. Neither star owns this center. Neither one is simply circling the other. Instead, they move together, around a point that belongs to both and to neither, held in a balance so steady it can endure for billions of years. Two lights, turning forever around the space between them. There is a quiet beauty in that arrangement, and a gentle model for love. The two stars do not orbit each other in possession or rivalry. They share a center, each holding the other in balance, each moving in equal answer to the other's pull. Neither is the possession of the other. They simply turn together faithfully around something they share. And perhaps the steadiest bonds are like this. Not one circling the other, but both held in balance around a center that belongs to the two of them alone. The impulse to protect what we cherish, to keep our loved ones safe and close, is among the most ancient instincts we carry, older by far than language, older than any name we ever learned to give it. The protective instinct, the drive to guard offspring and mates and bonds, appears across countless species and reaches back through hundreds of millions of years of life on Earth. It long predates human language, which is only tens of thousands of years old by comparison. The instinct to guard what we love was already deeply woven into living things long before any creature could speak a single word about it. And there is a kind of reverence owed to something so old. The protectiveness you feel, which can sometimes harden into jealousy, is not a modern affliction or a personal weakness. It is one of the most ancient currents running through all of life, present in creatures that lived and loved and guarded their own ages before the first human word was ever spoken. To feel it is to be connected to the deepest history of living things, all of them, across all that time, simply trying to keep safe the ones they could not bear to lose. If you could see the whole shape of a human life laid out, you might notice a gentle trend, a slow shifting of proportions. As the years pass, the moments of jealousy tend to grow fewer and smaller, while the moments of belonging, of settled connection, tend to widen and deepen. Research on emotional development across the lifespan finds that as people age, they often become more emotionally stable, experience negative emotions like jealousy less frequently, and place greater value on close, secure relationships. The sharp comparisons of youth tend to soften with time, giving way to a deeper appreciation of the bonds one has. The feeling does not vanish entirely, but its place in the whole of a life grows smaller. And there is something hopeful in that long arc, a reassurance about the direction things tend to flow. Whatever weight jealousy may carry now, it tends to lighten across the years, gently displaced by something steadier and warmer. The widening part of a life is not the part that compares and fears, but the part that belongs and trusts and rests. Time, it seems, is quietly on the side of peace, slowly trading the sharpness of youth for the gentler abundance of belonging. When the rain comes, it falls on everything beneath it, the just and the unjust alike. One field and the next, the garden and the wild, making no choices, showing no favor, touching all that lies open to the sky. Rain falls across the landscape without selection, watering every field and forest and meadow within its reach, equally indifferent to ownership or worth. The same cloud that waters one farmer's field waters the next, and the wild flowers between, and the bare hillside beyond. The rain does not measure or compare or withhold. It simply falls freely on all that lies beneath it. And there is a deep peace in that impartial giving, a quiet rebuke to the heart's habit of comparison. The rain reminds us that some of the most essential gifts are given without measure, without favoritism, without any accounting of who deserves what. They simply fall on everyone freely. As you rest now, you might let that image soften something in you. The picture of a gift that asks no questions and keeps no score, that touches everything it reaches with the same gentle abundance, holding back from no one, given freely to all. When the mind grows quiet and the day's demands fall away, notice where it drifts. Again and again, in its idle wandering, the resting mind returns to the people it loves, the faces it would not want to lose, the bonds that matter most. Neuroscientists have found that when the mind is at rest, not focused on any task, a network of brain regions called the default mode network becomes active, and much of its activity involves thinking about other people, about our relationships and social connections. The resting mind, left to itself, turns naturally toward the people in our lives, rehearsing and reflecting on the bonds that matter to us most. And there is something tender in that natural turning. Even in rest, even in idleness, the mind keeps its loved ones close, returning to them the way a hand returns to a worn and familiar stone. The same gentle preoccupation that can sharpen into worry is at its root simply this: the heart keeping its dear ones near, even when there is nothing to be done, even in the quiet. As your own mind drifts now towards sleep, it may wander to the faces you love. Let it. That wandering is only love, keeping its quiet watch. In the long unfolding of a human life, jealousy holds a curious place, arriving very early and lingering very late. One of the first complex feelings a child shows, and one of the most enduring across the whole span of years. Developmental researchers have observed jealousy emerging in infancy, among the earliest of the complex social emotions to appear, and it remains a part of human emotional life throughout the lifespan, never entirely leaving. It is there near the very beginning before a child can speak, and it remains in some quieter form through all the seasons of a life. Few feelings bracket our existence so completely, and there is something that calls for gentleness in that lifelong companionship. Jealousy is not a phase we outgrow or a flaw we eventually conquer and banish. It is a lifelong companion of the loving heart, present from our earliest days, and walking with us, softened by time, toward our last. To make peace with it, then, is not to defeat it, but to befriend it. To understand it as part of what it means to be a creature capable of love, here at the beginning, here at the end, here quietly all along. In the deep unconsciousness of sleep, when all our defenses are down, and all our thinking has stopped, the body still seeks something. It turns instinctively toward warmth, toward the presence of someone it trusts, drawn even in sleep toward closeness. Studies of couples who share a bed have found that sleeping partners unconsciously synchronize and orient toward one another during sleep, their bodies drawing closer, their sleep cycles even tending to align. The sleeping body, beyond all conscious choice, moves toward the warmth and safety of a trusted presence, seeking closeness even in the depths of unconsciousness. And there is something profoundly tender in that sleeping reach. Beneath all our complications, beneath jealousy and fear, and every troubled thought, the body holds a simpler truth, that it wants only to be near the ones it trusts, to rest in their warmth, to feel them close. This is what lies underneath everything, the simple animal longing for safe closeness that even sleep cannot switch off. As you settle now, that same deep wanting is in you, the body's quiet wish to be near what it loves, faithful even in dreams. When we trace jealousy down to its root, past all its surface objects, we find that what we truly fear losing is rarely a thing at all. It is a closeness, a connection, the warmth of being near to someone who matters. Psychologists who study jealousy and attachment find that the core fear beneath the feeling is not usually about possession or rivalry in the material sense, but about the threatened loss of a valued relationship, the fear of being abandoned or replaced in someone's affection. Beneath the surface, what aches is always the bond, the closeness, the connection itself. The thing is never really the thing. It is the nearness we fear to lose. And to see this clearly is to understand the feeling at last, and to hold it kindly. Your jealousy was never really about winning, or keeping, or having. It was always underneath about the simple human longing to remain close to someone you love, to not be left behind, to stay within the circle of a warmth that matters to you. That longing is not shameful. It is the most human thing there is, and recognizing it gently is the beginning of holding it with tenderness instead of fear. Lift your imagination to a single galaxy, an immense spiral wheeling slowly through the dark, holding within it more stars than anyone could ever count, each one burning with its own light. And not one of them is made dimmer by the brilliance of all the others. A typical galaxy contains many billions of stars, each one shining with its own light, and the brightness of any one star takes nothing away from the brightness of the rest. They burn together countless and luminous, each adding its glow to the whole without diminishing any other. There is no competition of light among the stars. There is only more light and more, the galaxy growing brighter for every star it holds. And there is a vast and freeing truth woven through that shining multitude. Brightness, it turns out, is not a thing in limited supply, not something one being must take from another. Each star shines fully, and all of them together only make the galaxy more luminous. Perhaps the lights of human lives are something like this too, each one able to shine completely without dimming another. The world only growing brighter for every soul that burns. There is room, the galaxy says, for all of us to shine. The human heart holds a remarkable range, and the distance between its harder and softer feelings can be crossed in a single breath. The very heart that can tighten with envy can open almost at once into warmth, into generosity, into tenderness. Research on emotion finds that our feelings are far more changeable and flexible than we often assume, that with a shift of attention or perspective, we can move from one emotional state to a very different one quite quickly. The same heart is capable of both envy and compassion, and the turn from one to the other can happen in moments, with nothing more than a gentle redirection of where we place our care. And there is great hope folded into that flexibility. You are not fixed in any feeling. The heart that aches with envy in one moment can in the next soften into genuine gladness for another, into tenderness, into love. The capacity is always there, waiting, needing only the smallest turning toward it. And as this long night settles toward its close, perhaps you can feel that capacity in yourself. The heart's quiet readiness to widen, to soften, to choose again and again, the gentler of its many possible feelings. Quietly, every bond you have ever formed remains a part of you, woven into the person you have become, never fully lost, never truly gone. The relationships and connections we form leave lasting marks on us, shaping our brains, our habits, our very sense of who we are. And these influences remain with us even after the relationships themselves have changed or ended. The people who loved us are written into us in the patterns of our thoughts, in the way we move through the world, in who we became because of them. Nothing that truly touched us is ever entirely lost. And there is deep comfort in resting on that, especially in a heart that fears losing what it loves. The bonds that matter do not simply vanish when circumstances shift. They remain folded into us, part of the fabric of who we are. The closeness you fear to lose has already become a part of you that nothing can take away. You carry it, and you will keep carrying it quietly, always, woven into the person these loves have made of you. As sleep approaches, the body lets go most easily when it feels at last that there is nothing more it needs to guard, nothing left to watch over, nothing to protect tonight. The transition into sleep requires the body to lower its vigilance, to let the protective alertness of waking life soften and recede. And this happens most readily when we feel safe, when the nervous system senses that it is secure and can finally rest. Sleep comes when the watchman lays down his post, when the body trusts that all is well enough to stop its guarding for the night. And so, as you lie here now, you might offer yourself that very permission, the gentle assurance that there is nothing you must guard tonight. What you love is safe. The bonds that matter are not slipping away in the dark. There is nothing here to watch over, nothing to protect, nothing to fear losing in this quiet hour. You can let the long watchfulness soften now. You can let it set down its weight. There is nothing left to guard tonight, and the body hearing this begins gently to release. Somewhere on the earth, even now in this very moment, a tide is turning, the great waters rising or falling slowly. in answer to a moon that has done nothing but remain faithfully in its place. Right now, as you rest, the tides are moving somewhere along the world's long coastlines, the seas rising and falling in their ancient rhythm, drawn by the steady, unchanging presence of the moon overhead. The moon does not chase or grasp or strive. It simply stays, and the waters answer, and the tide turns slow and certain, as it has for billions of years, and will for billions more. There is such peace in that faithful, unhurried motion, continuing quietly while you lie here in the dark. You do not have to do anything for it. It simply happens slow and sure, the patient answering of water to a presence that simply remained. And perhaps there is rest in knowing that the deepest things move this way, without urgency, without grasping. The tide turning gently, for a moon that only stayed the whole vast rhythm of it, unfolding softly while you drift toward sleep. The watching mind lets go the moment, and only the moment, that it truly trusts what it loves is safe. Trust is the key that finally releases the long vigilance of the heart. The brain's threat monitoring quiets when it receives sufficient signals of safety, when it comes to trust that there is no danger to guard against, allowing the deeper centers of calm to take over. Vigilance does not end through force or argument. It ends through trust, through the settling certainty that what we hold dear is secure, that we can safely loosen our watch and rest. And tonight you might let that trust settle gently over you. The ones you love are safe. The bonds that matter are holding even now, even as you rest, even without your watching. You can trust this. You can let the mind loosen its long and faithful watch, releasing breath by breath the vigilance it has carried so far. There is no danger in this quiet hour. There is only the soft and trustworthy dark, and the deep permission at last to rest. Even now, in the silence above you, ancient light is still arriving, drifting down, gentle and unhurried, from places so distant they never knew and never will know a single one of our names. The light from countless distant stars is reaching the earth at this very moment, light that has traveled for thousands or millions of years across the dark to arrive here now, falling softly upon a world the stars themselves know nothing of. It comes without urgency, without expectation, simply arriving as it has been arriving all along, gentle and patient and old. And there is such quiet comfort in being held beneath that ancient arriving light. It asks nothing of you. It carries no judgment, no comparison, no concern for any of the small fears of the heart. It simply falls softly from places unimaginably far, having crossed all that distance and all that time to be here with you in this moment. You are bathed, even in the dark, even in sleep, in light older than memory, gentle and unhurried, arriving still from places that never knew your name and shine for you all the same. The human heart was built to hold far more than its fears, with a capacity for love and warmth and connection that dwarfs the small, dark feelings that sometimes trouble it. And in rest, it begins to remember this. The human capacity for love, attachment, and positive connection is vast, deeply woven into our nature, far larger than our capacity for fear or envy or any of the harder feelings. We are made at our core for connection and care, and these run deeper in us than the anxieties that sometimes rise to the surface. The heart's true size is measured by what it can love, not by what it fears. And as you rest now, perhaps your own heart can remember its true proportions. The fears that troubled it are small and passing, and far outweighed by its deep capacity for love. You were built to hold so much more than you fear, to love far more than you worry, to connect far more than you guard. This is the truer shape of you, the larger and gentler truth. And in this quiet hour, the heart settles back toward its real size, remembering as it rests how much more it was made to hold. Every breath you have drawn tonight has come to you freely, asking nothing of anyone, taking nothing from anyone, given without cost from the vast shared air of the world. The air you breathe is part of an immense and freely shared atmosphere given to every living thing without charge or competition, your every breath drawn from an abundance that diminishes nothing and deprives no one. Tonight, breath after breath, you have been quietly receiving this gift freely, as you will go on receiving it through all the hours of your sleep. And there is such gentle reassurance in that endless, effortless giving. You do not have to earn the air, or compete for it, or fear it running short. It is simply given breath after breath freely all night long while you rest. As you breathe now slowly, you might feel the ease of it, the deep abundance of a gift that asks nothing back. There is enough. There has always been enough. And you can rest now, in the soft and certain knowledge that the very air will keep on giving itself to you freely, through every breath of the long and quiet night. The stillness that is settling over you now, softening your body and slowing your breath, is the very same stillness that quiets every guarded and watchful thing in all the world tonight. As night deepens across the world, countless creatures and countless hearts are settling into rest, their vigilance softening their watchfulness, easing all of them drawn down into the same deep stillness that is gathering around you now. The same quiet that is closing your eyes is closing the eyes of the sleeping birds, the resting animals, the weary and the watchful everywhere. You are part of a vast and gentle settling shared across the whole sleeping earth. And there is such belonging in that shared stillness, such company in the quiet. You are not alone in your settling. All across the world, every guarded thing is laying down its watch tonight, sinking into the same soft dark that holds you now. The stillness settling over you is the stillness settling over everything gentle and vast and shared. You are part of it, held within it. One small and resting soul among countless others, all of you quieting together, all of you finally gently letting go. What you love is not leaving you tonight. It is here and it is safe, and the night is wide enough and gentle enough to hold all of it, and you with perfect ease. The bonds you cherish endure quietly through the night, present and secure, asking nothing of you while you rest, holding fast in the soft dark whether you watch over them or not. There is nothing slipping away in this quiet hour, nothing being lost, nothing to guard against. What you love remains held safely within the wide and gentle keeping of the night. And so you can let yourself rest now, fully knowing this. What you love is not leaving. It is here, and it will still be here when the morning comes. The night is wide enough to hold every bond you cherish, every closeness you treasure, every soul you would not want to lose, all of it gently, all night long. You need not watch over any of it now. You can simply rest, held alongside everything you love in the vast and tender keeping of the dark. Slowly now the watching softens. The long vigilance of the heart, so old and so faithful, begins at last to ease, laying itself down gently for the night. That ancient watchfulness, the guarding instinct older than language, the vigilance that has kept watch over what we love since the very dawn of living things, knows how to rest too. It knows how to soften when the night is safe, how to lay itself down, how to trust the quiet, dark, and finally let go. And tonight, it is laying itself down in you. Let it. Let the watching soften. Let the heart lay down its long and ancient vigil breath by slowing breath, easing into the deep and gentle dark. There is nothing to guard now. There is nothing to fear losing. What you love is safe and held and near, and the night is wide and tender all around you. The old watchfulness can rest now. The heart can rest now. You can rest now, sinking softly, slowly into the quiet that has been waiting all along to hold you. I hope you sleep well and dream softly. Good night.